Alright, so it starts out like a normal Tuesday morning. Everything's the same. I get up on time, I've eaten breakfast on time, I'm out the door on time, headed to work. Everything's just like a normal Tuesday work day. And so I'm at a red signal light, maybe 3 signal lights away from the Highway 225 ramp. And so while I'm sitting there, there's a few cars that have piled up behind me, also waiting. And as the light turns green, I take my foot off the brake, and all of a sudden, I just hear this big boom. And then I just stop, and I'm like, wait, what just happened? Did someone hit me from behind? And then I'm just sitting there, and then I look up in the rear view mirror, and there's this black truck also not moving. And I'm like, yeah, I think I was just hit. I think this is a car accident. And so I'm just a little bit shocked, but I put my RAV4 on park, turn my blinkers on, and I get out of the car to just to see the damage. And so I go behind the RAV4, and it's a pretty medium-sized dent that's come out. And the owner or the driver of the black truck also comes out, wearing this black hat. It was a red flannel shirt tucked into his pants. He was a really lanky guy, maybe early to mid 20s, I have to say. And as he's coming out, he's just automatically saying, my fault, my fault, my fault. And I'm just thinking to my head, I'm like, yeah, it is your fault. But I didn't say that to his face. And I just look straight at him, and I'm like, do you at least have insurance? He goes, yeah, I have it. It's in the truck. Let me go get it. And he asked me, do you have yours? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get mine too so we can exchange. And so we both go back into our vehicles to get the insurance information. And while I'm getting it, I also think to myself, okay, this was an accident. It happened on a public street. I should go ahead and call the local police so that way an accident report can be filed, and we'll have something legitimate to use. And so as I'm on the phone with the LaPorte Police Department, I notice that he's gotten his information out. He's waiting outside, but he goes back into the truck for whatever reason. I don't think anything of it at the time. And so I'm on the phone with the dispatcher. She asks me, is anybody hurt? Where are you at? All that necessary information. And so I'm still on the phone with her. We're just about to wrap up, and I hear his truck turn back on. And so I'm looking, and all of a sudden, within like a few seconds, he just makes this really sharp turn, and he's driving off. And I'm on the phone with the dispatcher, and I'm going, oh my God, he's driving off. And she goes, at least get the license plate. Can you do that? And I told her, yeah, it's KSJ 9480. And she goes, okay, we'll send a police officer right away. And he was like 10 feet from me, so that's why I thought I had gotten a really good look at the license plate. And she goes, okay, is there any safe place you can go to, like a nearby business? I said, yeah, there's one right across the street. I'll go there, I'll park, and I'll wait for the police. She goes, okay. And so as we're wrapping up, I'm still outside of my car, when this car comes up behind me and just starts honking at me. And I look at it, and I'm like, my blinkers are on. Something's up. Either I was in an accident or my car broke down, and it's a two-way street, like a 2-lane street. Go ahead and go around me. And so then the car keeps honking, and I look back at it, and I look a little bit closer, and I notice that it's my coworker, and she's not honking because I'm not moving. She's honking because she knows me, and she pulls up a little bit closer, and she goes, "What's going on?" And I go, I was just in a hit and run. Someone hit me from behind and ran off. And she was like, oh my goodness, are you okay? And asking me all the details. And I go, yeah, I'm fine, but I have to wait for the police for them to get my report. She goes, okay, I'll let the supervisor know. You don't worry, you take your time. And by this point, there's like other cars piled up behind us. This time they're honking because she's not moving. And so I tell her, like, you know what, let's just not make a bigger mess than what it is. You go ahead and keep going, let's keep the traffic moving, and I'll wait for the police. And she goes, okay, I'll see you later. And so I pull up into the business, and then maybe 10 minutes later, the police officer comes by, he gets my report, confirms the license plate, And he does let me know. He said, it is a hit and run. A lot of times these things come to a dead end, either because the owner doesn't pick up, or the license plate is faulty, whatever the case. A lot of times they just end up being dead ends. So consider if you want to, file official charges, all that stuff. And I go, okay, y'all think about it, but let's first see what comes up of the license plate. I mean, the guy was the truck was 10 feet away from me. I figured I had gotten a really good look of the license plate. And so he goes, all right, I'm going to contact the owner and see why he did what he did and see what comes out of it. And so I'm maybe 3 to 4 minutes away from my work, and he gives me a call. He goes, okay, here's the thing. The license plate you gave me, I checked it out, but it is registered to a blue Dodge Durango. Is it possible that a Dodge Durango hit you? And I go, no way. This was a black truck, those really heavy duty pickup trucks. He goes, okay, I'm just making sure, because this, not only is this a Dodge Durango, but this registration, this owner lives in Arkansas. And he goes, I'm going to reach out to him and see if he knows anyone in LaPorte that may have had his vehicle or license plate. But, I don't know what's going on. It's really weird. And I go, okay, I'll wait for your call, but just let me know what happens. He goes, okay. And then maybe 20 to 30 minutes later, he gives me a call back. He goes, okay. So the owner eventually called him back, but he is a military man. So he's traveled a lot, but he's never lived in Texas, nor does he know anyone who may live in LaPorte that he knows. He goes, so I'm not sure what kind of license plate you got. Maybe, you mixed up the numbers. It could be a stolen one. Something's up here. And at this point, I'm just out of my mind. I'm so frustrated. And I'm how could I have made such a big mistake? Was my vision that bad? Do I need to go back to the doctor's office and get a new prescription? What happened? And he goes, I'm going to play around with the numbers. The police officer, he said, I'm going to see if maybe you messed up the numbers here or there to see if we can come up with a black pickup truck. But he goes, wait for my call. I'll probably reach out later in the day and let's see what happens. And at this point, I'm just frustrated. I'm sad. I'm angry at myself. And I go to work. I make the phone calls. I, do my normal work routine as I usually do. And then my coworker is in my ear saying, first step is always to take as many pictures as you can. And I'm like, yes, I know, but it was my first accident. I was overwhelmed. I didn't think of taking a picture. And she goes, yeah, but this is what happens. And I go, yeah, I know. And then I just think of this idea. I get on the internet and I look up these, I go to a license plate website where you can look up the plates to see what kind of vehicle it is. And then all you have to do is pay for the owner information, which I didn't have to do. I just wanted to see if my license plate was registered to a pickup truck. When I did that, it was registered to a Dodge Durango, a blue Dodge Durango. And so then I start playing around with the numbers. I'm like, okay, maybe I did mess up. So I'm playing around with the numbers. I do come up with 5 or 6 other options for pickup trucks registered under 2017, 2018. So I have that on a post. I'm ready to give it to the police officer when he calls. Police officer calls back 2 or 3 o'clock later that afternoon. And I have that posted in my hand. I'm ready to give him the numbers to look up. And he goes, here's the thing. I don't have to look up these numbers anymore because the guy that hit you actually turned himself in. And then I just get quiet. And I'm like, wait, what? He goes, yeah, the guy that hit you, that did the hit and run, actually turned himself in. He comes into the police station later that afternoon and let them know that the hit and run that happened in the morning was him. And I go, really? And the police officer is also quite surprised. I can hear it in his voice, that the fact that someone actually turned himself in. And he goes, yeah. He goes, whenever I asked him why he did what he did, he said, well, the situation was taking too long and that he had to make it to court. So I don't know what that story holds, but anyways, we're just wrapping up the call, and he goes, I'll get his insurance information to you. I think he should be good to go. His insurance does look legit. I go, and I'm thanking him, letting him know how much I appreciate him, and I go, wait, but can you at least tell me how off was the license plate? Was my vision that bad? And he goes, okay, let me get that information for you. So you gave me and the police dispatcher KSJ 9480, right? And I go, yes. He goes, well, the actual license plate number was KSJ 9840. So I had messed up the 8 and the 4. But thankfully, the guy actually turned himself in, so I didn't have to worry about that. But once I did get the accident report, I did also notice that he lived only 2 streets down from me in my same neighborhood. So even though had he not turned himself in, I'm sure eventually I would have ran into that same truck. But yeah, that was my very first accident story.